What's good, YouTube? Today we're going to be ranking the most fun melee DPS going into patch 10.2. Kicking things off then, we're going to start with the Survival Hunter. Going into the next season, we're going to get a lot more prio damage from our bombs, which is going to feel really nice feeding that into a priority target. The 2 set for me is actually really enjoyable as well because I love pressing Fury of the Eagle and it just makes that cooldown much more impactful, so that is a big W right there. From the 4 set, it's a little bit more boring, but we do get a free bomb from it, and that further increases the bomb prio damage, so that's going to feel great. The tier set definitely does have its problems. The 2 set should be refreshing the duration of the crit damage buff until the end of the Fury of the Eagle channel, because we're losing about 3 or 4 seconds from just channeling Fury of the Eagle anyway, so that's unfortunate. And going into the 4 set, they did make a good change recently so that we're not actually eating as much bombs or munching them, because when we throw our next bomb after the Fury of the Eagle cast, we are not going to incur a cooldown on that first bomb. We're also going to get some prio damage out of it even further, so that is a lovely little change. Outside of the tier set, the spec is generally just very fun for me. You've got lots of different interactions with the bombs. You've got some big serpent sting damage, which I'm actually a big fan of. Feels so good to be pressing that Fury of the Eagle. The reason it's not higher is because of the coordinated assault cooldown. You need about 3 weak auras to actually run this. You need to turn your pet's basic attacks off so that it doesn't munch your kill shot buffs. It's just ridiculous, so they definitely need to rework that at some point and bloody rework the whole hunter tree, in fact. But for now, survival is in the B tier. Yeah, like I said, it could be higher, but for now it's going to stay there. Next, we move on to the Windwalker Monk, which I know a lot of Windwalker mains are not happy right now, and for good reason too. The tier set, once again, is proccing off of their melee attacks, which, although you wouldn't believe it, Windwalker doesn't actually have the best melee attack profile in the game, because a lot of their abilities are channels, or a lot of the abilities they just don't melee attack through, so you're losing so much value from your tier set there if it is based off of melee attacks, which in this case, once again, it is. The tier set is going to cause you to want to spin even more through your spinning crane kick, and apparently this is proccing the same sound as your Dance of Chi-Ji, but it's not doing as much damage because you're not getting a damage bonus from it, so that definitely feels weird. Cooldown reduction is always fun, and I do like that when a tier set implements that, but it definitely, for me, could be more than 1 second, so it feels a lot more impactful. But again, this is going to depend on how much the tier set is actually proccing from your melee attacks. So for the Windwalker Monk, it's normally a very fun rotation for me, so that is picking this up. Otherwise, it would probably be in the bottom tier, but for now, I'm going to place this one in the C tier. Moving on to the Havoc Demon Hunter then, which has obviously just got a massive rework, so that's very exciting for any Havoc players out here. However, Blizzard, for whatever reason, are still very heavily leaning into a momentum-based playstyle, unfortunately. I can't think of one Havoc Demon Hunter off the top of my head that enjoys that playstyle. We obviously have inertia now as well on the talent node, but it's just momentum in disguise. That's basically all it is. It is less uptime on having to dash around, so that is an improvement, but it's still just like not what you want to be doing, especially in like a Mythic Plus or Raid setting. It's basically like an extra affix. It's horrible. It's going to get me killed if I play it, so I'm steering clear of the Havoc Demon Hunter. The tier set is based off of Froglaive, which I know a lot of people think is weird, but for me personally, I actually really like that. I like Soul Rend, or Soul Scar it's now called, as a talent. I think it's a nice little interaction during the rotation. And you're also going to reduce the hunt cooldown, which is always a massive W, because pressing the hunt feels amazing. It's never not going to feel PogChamp. They've just recently removed Fodder to the Flame as well, so again, with the Ws, they seem to be going in the right direction. I just think they need to steer a little bit away from momentum. Inertia's fine for now, but I think long term, nobody enjoys it. Like, Demon Hunter used to be the most played spec by far, and now, from what I've heard, everybody hates the spec that's played it since the launch of Dragonflight, basically. So that's unfortunate. Fel Barrage has been changed now into basically like a mini Breath of Sindragosa window. It's doing some big damage as well, so it's feeling very impactful when you're pressing it, and it's a lovely little button to press. But saying that, outside of momentum, I am having a good time testing the Demon Hunter on PTR. The first key I did was a little bit embarrassing, but once I got to grips with the spec, it was a lot more fun and engaging. It sort of feels like the old Havoc, like it's much more simplistic, in my opinion, compared to what it's been previously, especially with losing momentum, because I've been playing Inertia. I'm still not sure exactly which one you're going to play, but Inertia is definitely my favorite of the two, so I'm going to put the Havoc Demon Hunter in the top of B tier for now. If momentum wasn't a thing, it could definitely creep. I mean, it would guaranteed be A tier, maybe even S tier, because apart from momentum, the rest of the spec is really fun and engaging, in my opinion. The visuals are sick, like you really just can't fault the spec. except momentum. Moving on then, we are going on to the Feral Druid, which actually feels super good on single target and AoE now, which is the main problem that Feral Druid has had since the start of Dragonflight. They can either spec into single target and do decent damage there, or they spec into AoE and do some monstrous AoE damage, but they're sort of able to do both of them now because of the tier set. Your talent, you are pigeonholed into Feral Frenzy, which if you're not a fan of that talent can definitely feel bad, but it is then translating to your AoE damage as well. So it's a super fun spec for me at the moment, definitely. I'm in love with the talents like Double Clawed Rake. Primal Wrath was probably the best change they implemented. And then the Apex procs that you get off of the more rips that you have in AoE just feels amazing. I'll never stop going on about it because then that translates back into AoE damage through your Rampant Ferocity. So super fun spec for me. I really do enjoy the spec. The only problem, and I always say it, is the fact that you're stuck in cat form. You can't see your transmogs. It would just never be S tier for me because of that, but it is definitely a solid A tier. Like, to be fair, going into next patch, we're getting a lot more customizations for the Druid, so that might help out, but I mean, still, it's going to be very limited in comparison to all the different armor sets that you could have on your guy through transmog. But yeah, lots to min-max on this spec, and even at a base level, if you don't understand it in depth, you can still do some solid DPS, so I feel like it's in the perfect spot where new players can pick it up. Feral's always been known to be one of those harder specs, but I would advise you to try it even if you are scared of it. And then there's so much to min-max that if you do want to get to that next level, there is plenty of room to improve. On to Frost DK then. Again, with the weird tier sets this season, they seem to be going really like abstract with the tier sets this season, but Chill Streak has gone from being a PvP talent to a PvE talent, and now it's baked into the tier set. So that's definitely an interesting one. It seems like they really want to force Chill Streak. I know some people love it, I know some people hate it. The 2 set is relatively boring because you're just going to get damage off of it basically. And the 4 set has a lot of RNG, so it's going to feel weird for sure because you're definitely going to want to pray for the better procs, which I imagine is going to be the Chill Streak DR so that you can get better uptime on the damage buff, but it could be the Empowered Rune Weapon CDR as well, no doubt. And because of these 4 set procs, if you do get those Empowered Rune Weapon procs, then it seems like it's going to heavily feed into the Breathless Sindragosa build, which I'm sure a lot of you will be pleased to hear because I know you will bloody love it, especially in Mythic Plus. Don't know how it will fare in Mythic Plus. I mean, it's always a bit skeptical with the Breath build because it is so group reliant on your group doing big pulls around the Frost DK, so probably not going to work in bugs. Might still feed into the Obliteration build. I'm no Frost DK expert, but apart from that, the spec's really fun, flashy. A lot of procs, a lot of buttons lighting up that you just mash, so that is always fun for me. The only issue that I could potentially see with having to pick up Chill Streak and potentially the talent underneath it as well to get the increased yardage on it is you're going to have to lose talents elsewhere. So you might have to lose talents like Gathering Storm, which I personally find really fun to play. But like I said, I'm no theory crafter for the Frost DK, so you might be able to drop more boring talents and get the Chill Streak for no cost. But for me, for the Frost DK, I'm going to probably whack this one in the bottom of B for now. We'll have to see which build is actually going to be played, whether it's going to be the Breath or Obliteration build, but it's just not on the same level as Survival Hunter or the Havoc Demon Hunter for me. So it's going to stay at the bottom for now. We'll give it a B-. Onto its counterpart then, we have the Unholy DK. Personally, going into next season, this spec looks a lot more fun. There's a lot of changes for this spec going into next season. It seems like they're moving away from the massive 3-minute bursty spec that it's been and shoving more damage into the 45-second damage profile, which is huge. I love short cooldown windows, especially if they feel impactful. That Apocalypse is now going to be spawning those Maguses of the Dead that are going to be firing out AoE Shadow Bolts. You're also going to be rewarded with these Maguses that you spawn. Better players are going to be able to extend their duration for longer. The 4 set's a little bit boring because it's just amplifying the damage that it's already doing, but the 2 set is cool enough and thematically it plays so well into the Unholy DK. Not only have they bridged the gap from the 3-minute cooldown doing all of your damage inside that and not much outside of that, unless there's obviously a million targets, the Unholy DK thrives, but because of these Maguses, now you're going to shine in cleave situations as well. Being able to hit those 4 or 5 Shadow Bolts from the Maguses is going to feel super good, and they are pumping right now, so that is a W right there. I've never personally been that interested in the Unholy DK, but for next season, I might have to pick it up because it's looking mega fun. So we're going to put this one in A tier, just behind the Feral Druid. I think for me, Feral Druid feels a little bit more complete, but Unholy definitely looks like a super fun pick for next season. Now, moving on to everybody's favorite spec recently, it's the Ret Paladin. Apparently, everybody swapped their mains over to this spec, but from what I've heard, if you like the set in Season 2, you're going to like the set in Season 3. Ret obviously still has a very bursty 1-minute damage profile, which feels super good. You're going to have cooldowns up for every single pack in Mythic Plus. Your opener might look a little bit different to ensure your uptime on your expurgation for your tier set, but other than that, it's going to be pretty much the same. The 4 set is pretty cool because it's going to be echoing your spender, whether it's your Divine Storm or your Templar's Verdict. It is unfortunate because so much of your damage profile is already on your spenders, and now it's just going to exacerbate that even more. And on top of that, the tier set is completely passive, so you're not really going to be able to play around it or feed into it or actually feel it. But I suppose you can see visually that you're going to be firing off multiple Divine Storms, which could look pog for sure. And obviously going into the next patch, what I forgot to mention for the Unholy DK and also the Frost DK is that you're going to be able to get the Legendary. So depending on how sick the Legendary is, that could be another massive W for the Ret Paladin. For Ret, I'm going to whack this one in the B tier as well. We got a lot of B tiers so far. I'm going to whack this one above Survival, but just behind Havoc. For me, Ret is something that I could probably never main personally, but it's flashy, it's fun, it's got short, bursty cooldowns, so that's always a big dub. So B for the Retribution Paladin. Now we have the Rogue specs. Rogue's obviously got a massive rework going into this patch, and it seems like the devs for Rogue have absolutely smashed it. I'm not too familiar with Assassination myself, but the other 2 specs I am a little bit more familiar with. We'll start with the Assassination Rogue though. Indiscriminate Carnage is now no longer an active button, and it's just baked into your stealth, which is a great change. It's going to work with your Subterfuge and also just allow you to spread those garrotes and ruptures from stealth every single pack. The only downside of this is you're going to not want to chain pull as a tank if you've got an Asa Rogue in there, because they're going to lose so much damage and so much utility and crowd control from it, because with those garrotes from silence, you're going to be able to silence and reduce the damage those mobs are dealing. It's just going to feel so impactful every time you leave stealth as an Assassination Rogue, so that's super fun. The new talent as well, Caustic Splatter, allows for prio damage, which is going to tie in nicely with your tier set as well, and that's going to also passively cleave, but not only just passively cleave, it does some big old damage right now, so that feels super good. I know some people aren't a fan of specs being able to get like most of their capstones at the bottom of the tree, because that kind of eliminates the like choosing process, but you are able to get 4 capstones as an Assassination Rogue. I personally love that. Just feels like you get even more power at the end of your tree. The tier set is kind of boring. You get your attack speed, so that could feel definitely cool with your energy regeneration. With the 4 set, having to Envenom on AoE, I don't know if personally I'm a fan of that, because you're going to get your Crimson Tempest up, so it's no longer going to be the Crimson Tempest spam, especially on a single target, which I know As Rogues were doing for quite a while. But now you're going to have an Envenom on AoE as well as single target, so there's no variety there, which I don't know if I'm a fan of personally, but I guess it's better than just spamming Crimson Tempest in a way, maybe. Super fun changes for the Assassination Rogue next tier and just Rogue in general, but we'll get onto the other 2 in a second. I'm going to whack this one at the top of A tier. I think with the rework, I would be doing the devs a disservice if I put any of these specs below A tier, so that spoils what's to come. But yeah, I do think the only thing that kind of lacks from the Assassination Rogue next tier is the tier set from a fun perspective. On to Outlaw then. This spec, oh my god, when I played this, I've been testing this in Mythic Plus on the PTR, and I've just been having too much goddamn fun with it. If only I was good enough to main Rogue, then I would definitely be maining a Rogue this season. Outlaw's going straight in the S tier. There is so many good changes going into next season for the Outlaw Rogue. We've got Crackshot, an amazing talent that interacts so nicely with Between the Eyes, which also interacts very nicely with your stealth mechanics. The only thing I can say is that Outlaw is kind of taking on the subtlety class or spec fantasy, with staying in stealth and maximizing your stealth potential. You got your Vanish, you got your Subterfuge, you've got your Shadow Dance, you've got your stealth. It's all about staying in stealth now, spamming those ambushes, building up to max combo points, and then spending with Between the Eyes while you're in stealth so that your Between the Eyes doesn't go on cooldown. Super fun and engaging for me. I was really enjoying playing this. It's just, yeah, a little bit weird coming from like a spec that's meant to be themed around being like a pirate and an outlaw. But yeah, regardless, I was having so much fun. I think it's also the ace up your sleeve talent, where when you fire off your between the eyes, you have a chance to get combo points back. So you can literally just get proc after proc after proc of just spamming between the eyes. Feels so good. And also because of crack shot, your between the eyes is also dispatching for even more damage. It's just unreal. Killing Spree is now also a finisher, which is pretty cool, I guess, in a way. And they've also tied a little damage reduction into it so that you don't get punished for pressing it, because obviously you do lose control of your character. We'll have to see how this plays out, if it's actually going to be strong enough as a finisher, especially with crack shot between the eyes. But for now, that sounds super fun, and also hopefully you're going to get the CDR on it from Restless Blades. I imagine you will. Because of how much you're coming out of stealth at the moment, and also keeping uptime on your buffs, you have so many Roll the Bones buffs active at all time. Like you're pressing one global, shooting up to max combo points, finishing with between the eyes and stuff. Like I don't know if you guys can tell, I'm in love with this spec. We haven't even gotten to the best part yet, which is the underhanded upper hand, I think it's called. But basically, your Slice and Dice, your Blade Flurry, and your Adrenaline Rush all make each other not lose any duration while you're in stealth. They play off of each other. I'm not going to go how off of each one interacts with each other, but my opener would be a Adrenaline Rush into a Blade Flurry into a Slice and Dice, sit in stealth, and then none of those cooldowns lose any duration. So going from pack to pack, you're not rushing the tank into the next pack. You're just sitting in stealth. You're chilling. You've got all your cooldowns up. With the amount of CDR you're getting as well, your Adrenaline Rush is sometimes coming back before your current Adrenaline Rush has even finished. It's bonkers, man. This spec is so fun. Please have a go. There's so much more to go over, but this spec is so fast paced and fun. And I don't want that to put anybody off either, because a lot of it is just like a few buttons in the rotation. You're just spamming them back to back. As long as you can keep the stealth uptime, it's ambush between the eyes, ambush between the eyes. Keep your Blade Flurry up, use your pistol shot procs to get your ambushes when you're out of stealth. It's just, it just feels so smooth and buttery. Like, we just love it. So if there was an S+ tier, Outlaw would be going straight in it, because it just, like, Rogue devs, you've done a solid job. Moving on to the Subtlety Rogue then, you'll have to forgive me because I haven't actually tested this spec on the PTR and Mythic Plus yet. I have hit dummies though, and there seems to be a lot of button blow specifically for the Subtlety Rogue, but I think Rogue just suffers from that in general. You're getting a lot more combo point generation though going into next season through the 4 set, and also summoning clones is pretty goddamn sick. One of the biggest and best changes though going into next season is to your shadowy techniques, because you're now going to be storing your combo points passively. So this means you're not going to overcap on them, and you're going to be able to spend them when you're in your Symbols of Death windows through your Shadowcraft talent. This massively helps your passive combo point generation, also getting that energy back. Like, it just feels amazing. So that is probably my favorite change going into next season, I think. Another really nice change is Shadow Burst now actually adds a big burst window to the Subtlety Rogue every 2 minutes. Subtlety always used to be kind of flatline, but now you have that massive spike through your Shadow Blade. So that is huge, because to be fair, apart from that, all of the rogue specs are pretty flatline in their damage, so it's nice to have a burstier one, which I think suits Subtlety the most. The spec for me does seem quite challenging. I don't know if that's just because I'm not familiar with the spec, but even compared to previous iterations of the sub-rogue that I pretty confidently could play, Subtlety definitely seems harder now. I don't know if that's also due to the button blow, but it's super fun and engaging. I'm going to put the Subtlety Rogue in S tier. It's quite a way behind the Outlaw Rogue, so maybe you could argue that it was top of A tier. I mean, maybe we do that. Let's do that. We'll put Subtlety Rogue in the top of A tier. I think Outlaw is just like cleared above the rest here. Like, it's just so fun to me. Onto the Enhancement Shaman then. You guys know, if you've been following for a while now, that I have been in love with the Enhancement Shaman in Dragonflight. Not so much the Elementalist build, but there's a reason why. Elementalist has just been too hard for me. I think the tab targeting of the Lava Lashes to increase that Flame Shock damage is just one step too far for the spec. However, finally, I don't think that, well, there is a build where you don't actually have to play that, and you can play 2 points in Elemental Assault instead. And that just makes the spec feel so much smoother. And like, I tunnel on this spec anyway, but now I have that like free thought, of not having to every global be tab targeting while keeping up with all my buffs, while not munching any procs. Like, that was what was killing the spec for me, and now it is just unbelievable. I love this spec. Going into this patch, they did increase Primordial Wave's damage by, I think, 500%. So that global actually feels impactful now. So that feels really good. The 2 set is pretty bland, but it does help even further to make Primordial Wave feel even more impactful. And then from the 4 set, you are getting massive cooldown reduction on Primordial Wave, which is really nice because it gives you that P-Wave cycle much more frequently. Every time you're summoning your Feral Spirits, that's knocking 14 seconds off. When you press Primordial Wave, it's knocking 7 seconds off because it's also summoning 1 Feral Spirit. So you're getting the Primordial Wave up even quicker, which was already a quick cooldown as it was. So that feels super good. You're getting massive haste from that and just massive damage. Primordial Wave is one of those cooldowns that it feels impactful even though it's on a short cooldown and it's pretty much always up. I'm a Beast Mastery Hunter main, if you guys know, and the Bestial Wrath cooldown, like, it's just not impactful at all, and you're always doing pretty much the same sort of damage. It's not the same case with Primordial Wave. When you press it, you know you've pressed it. It speeds up your rotation. It does massive damage through the lightning bolts. Like, it's just mega fun. I can't do a fun tier list for the Enhancement Shaman as well and not mention the visual and audio feedback. Like, it is just second to none in this game. The only thing that comes close is its counterpart, the Elemental Shaman, and maybe the Destro Lock, but the ranged video will come soon, don't you worry. Enhancement Shaman, you're going straight at the top of the A tier. I am a bit skeptical that Lashing Flames could still be the place. Otherwise, the Enhancement Shaman would probably be in the S tier for me. It would definitely be in the S tier, let me tell you, if the Ascendance procs were a thing. But unfortunately, with the Elementalist build, it doesn't look like we're playing that. Hopefully, we don't have to run Wind Fury Totem in Mythic Plus either, because I just hate carrying that around. I know you can do it with Totemic Projection, but just always having that on your subconscious, like, has my Wind Fury Totem despawned? It's no bueno. Outside of that, it would be S tier for sure. Like, I love this spec. I just love Shaman in general, to be fair, which I never did before Dragonflight. Onto the final class then, we have the Warrior. We're going to start with the Arms Warrior, and again, with the abstract tier sets, increasing the rend damage. It's definitely interesting, but I do think it's kind of cool, to be fair. The tier set also is allowing you to proc those sudden deaths, and when you consume those sudden deaths, your execute is not only going to do more damage, especially through the bleed, but it's also going to trigger a passive thunderclap, and from what I've tested, the thunderclap actually kind of claps. I do need to mention as well that this tier set in specific is obviously giving Arms Warrior some extra funnel as well, because the more rends you're having out, the more chance you've got of proccing sudden death, which means you can feed those executes into your main priority target and also passively cleave through those thunderclaps. So that's a big W in my opinion. The only problem is that with the Arms Warrior is you're already struggling to spend as much rage as you can for talents like Test of Might and also Anger Management to get your cooldowns quicker. Those sudden deaths are obviously free. The only change Blizzard need to do here is even if a proc makes the ability free, for example Execute, it still needs to count as though you spent 35 rage, or how much rage is it, I don't know, so that you're still getting the value off of those talents, because otherwise those talents become obsolete and just useless. So that's the only thing that they could change, and that would make the spec a lot more fun and the tier set a lot more powerful. There is a lot of bugs for the Arms Warrior currently on PTR, so hopefully they get fixed before it goes live, but to be fair, I was really enjoying what I've tested from Arms so far, so I'm going to whack this one in the top of the B tier. Finally, we're onto the Fury Warrior, which unfortunately this tier is not looking great, at least personally for me. I've been in love with the Fury Warrior. It's so fast paced, it's so button mashy. Not sure that I could main it purely because of those reasons. But with this build, or with this tier set, sorry, again, it's just focused on Bloodthirst. There's a potential where we could just end up spamming Bloodthirst, keeping up the Whirlwinds and into Rampages, and that's literally all you press in the rotation. So that's unfortunate. Obviously, it is based around Odin's Fury as well. Getting the cooldown reduction on Odin's Fury is cool. I do like that for the tier set. I'm not sure how I feel in general about these tier sets forcing people into talents. Like, fortunately for me, I do enjoy a lot of the talents that all of these specs are being forced into through the tier sets. Odin's Fury being the main one there, I do really enjoy that button. Like, that button feels good to press. You've got your fast-paced cooldowns, you've got your fast-paced rotation. The cooldowns are always rolling for Fury Warrior. Again, the only problem with that for me is it's very flatline. Like, don't get me wrong, Fury Warrior is so bursty, but it never has like a massive peak. It kind of peaks at the start with obviously the insane burst, and it just kind of stays there, or maybe drops a bit and then comes back up like a little bit. So for me, Fury Warrior is looking a little bit less fun than the Arms Warrior next patch. I'm going to whack it, still in the B tier, but I'm going to put it down to, I mean, probably even here, honestly. For me, I didn't honestly think that arms would be more fun to me, but it definitely is. The cyclical playstyle for me and just the tier set make it that much better than Fury going into next season. It has those highs as well. Hopefully we can play Bladestorm. I know I'm talking about arms again, but yeah, Fury, B tier, a solid B tier. It's still fun. It's still Fury Warrior. People are going to enjoy it. But yeah, that is what my tier list is looking like. We've got Outlaw as the winner. Windwalker mains, I'm sorry. You are the loser here, but I'm sure you'll probably agree with me unless you like those ebb and toes. If you guys have your own thoughts on how this tier list could have played out, please let me know down below. Leave a like if you did like the video and also subscribe to your boy while you're down there. And until next time, I'll catch you guys later.